Hey everyone, today I'm sitting at my desk and just editing some photos. I've been getting a couple of questions lately about how I edit my images, so I thought I would make a video just showing that process. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Espen, and usually I go out into the field, bring you guys with me and take photos of wildlife. So if you're into that, then please consider subscribing and hitting that bell to be notified. Anyways, let's just dive into this and I'll share my screen with you and I'll show you guys how I do my editing. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen here now. I'm in Lightroom, which I'm sure a lot of you guys will be using as well. Now, I've just picked an image of a juvenile robin here that I took probably a month ago or so. And I just wanted to show you guys a quick kind of step-by-step, the raw file, which is right here, then the Lightroom edits, and then the Photoshop edits. First thing I did into Lightroom is cropped it, changed a few of the color temperatures and a few of these first kind of sliders here, the highlights, the blacks, the contrast, and those kind of things. So not too much. And then I would bring it into Photoshop, and that's where you'll see the bigger changes. And as you can see, the main thing is that I've really brightened up the bird in this top half of the image, and much more emphasis on the bird. And I've darkened parts of the background here using dodging and burning. And that's what I'm going to be going through this video. If you can also see here again, just darkened all these bright areas here, more light on the bird, darken behind. As you can see, those twigs up here, I've actually removed those using the cloning tool up here. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I will change to an image is if I couldn't do it in the field or if I didn't pay attention to it, small things like that, I don't mind taking away from the image because it's just a little bit too distracting. And I don't think it changes the overall image that much. So I'm quite happy doing that, but that's a personal choice and everybody has a right to do it the way they like it. Anyways, so as you can see, that bird is just a lot brighter and hopefully that eye is just kind of drawn into that a lot more. So that's what I'm basically doing in Photoshop. And so that was a finished image. Now I thought we'd jump over here to do an image that I haven't edited or I have edited before. It's an image that I really like. I've just reset it here. I'm going to redo it here with you guys to show my process. So this is a red squirrel that I took earlier this year in Cumbria. And I really like this image. It's got loads of kind of sleety snow going on here. And you can see all these kind of light rings that kind of comes up out of focus areas. It's just kind of in its habitat. You can kind of tell that it's pine forest behind. So really, I really like this image anyways. And I don't like this tree stump here, this dead tree trunk. And I definitely don't like this thing here. I think it's quite distracting. So first thing we do, crop tool is basically always how I start my images, just cropping them. And now I'm just going to type right up against the squirrel and just exclude that bit of the tree. You can kind of see that there is a tree trunk back there, but I'm just really getting that away. I'm just going to really just getting rid of that, cropping right in on the squirrel, and this is where I want the attention of the viewer to go. Then I'll just work my way through the sliders. I'll go to the temperature and I'll warm it up a little bit. Not too much. Quite like the feel of this image as it was. And yeah, you can use the picker here and stuff like that. I tend to shoot in either keeping it in white balance and automatic or overcast all the time, and I'll just change it. And now these days I just eyeball it right here. And this is the kind of thing for my editing process as well. It has changed over time. And I think as with photography, it's just an evolutionary progress. You learn things, you get rid of things that you don't like, or you don't think that work that well anymore. And this is how I do my editing now. And the dodging and burning that I do in Photoshop is a fairly new thing, but I really like it. So right now I'm going with that, and I don't do that much in Lightroom actually. So I jump down here a little bit. Don't think I need to. Sometimes I would, get rid of those highlights a bit, but they're not that bright. I'll raise the shadows a bit. Then we go down here to the blacks and really introduce some more of that blackness to the image and get the contrast up. I'll go back up to the contrast and add a little bit if I feel like it needs it. I think I can get a little bit more in there. And there we go. I could brighten up the whole image, but I quite like it a bit darker. It was a dark day that I was taking this, overcast and just rough weather. So, and like I said, I do a lot of the dodging. I do the dodging and burning in Photoshop, so that's where all the that's where more of that happens. Down here, I wouldn't usually touch these that much, but I think some texture here could be good for that squirrel. Obviously not too much, easily overdo it, and that's not very nice at all. But maybe just a tad, a little bit on there. Then I'll leave the rest alone. Used to do stuff with tone curves, don't anymore. Down, 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 and this is where I used to do my sharpening and noise reduction. I'll show you what I used to do, which is masking first. Hold the option in. I'm on a Mac, so I guess that's maybe the Alt key or something. So you can kind of see what you don't want to sharpen. So bring it up to here. Bring the sharpening up to, I don't know, 70, something like that. Not too high. And then we go down here with the luminance and somewhere between 15 and 20, so it doesn't introduce too much softness to the image. But I don't think this tool work. It's not ideal, and I've changed this process now, and I'm going to share it with you guys in probably the next post-processing video I'll do one on noise reduction, because it just works absolutely amazing. And I think this video is going to drag on a bit too long, so let's save it for the next video. So I'll just reset these sliders. I'm not going to do any of that. And I'll do the profile lens correction here. And that's it. So then, oops, stay on there. That's the image here in Lightroom. And let's just open it up. Oh no, wrong one. Open it up in Photoshop. So here for this, I just go okay to use the embedded profile. So like I said, I'm on a Mac, so I will use Command 0 to probably Control 0 on a PC, though I'm not completely sure. What that does is just kind of stretches the image to use the entire view that I have there. If you're new to Photoshop, let me just go over real quick. You probably want to look at like a beginner's Photoshop video or something like that, but I'll try my best to explain just a little bit if somebody's very brand new to it. So I use the curves here. If I press curves, it adds a curves adjustment layer here, and it also adds this here, which is like a masking, a layer mask, it's called. So for this, I'm going to darken the image. I'm just going to go overboard now so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And the layer mask will actually mask the effect. But since it's white, the way to kind of get a feel for Photoshop is, I really like the explanation where you look at it as one of those projectors where, my school years, you would have a projector and kind of see-through sheet that would lie on top of an image, and you can kind of draw on that, the blank sheet, and you can kind of layer the effects on top of the image. This is kind of, the image lies at the bottom, so it's not affected, and you add layers on top, and if you turn those on, they will be visible, and you can kind of add all these layers on top of the image. But you're not really affecting the bottom image, which is here. And this layer right now, like I said, is white, so that's see-through, so then you can, this whole effect is showing on the image. But I can change that to black, and I can go Command I, and that's the layer mask. So that's actually now just masking what I've done here. So anything I do to this now won't really be seen. Unless this is white, and I have to be sure that's highlighted. And now I can paint in white on top of here to show the effect that I've done here, darkening the image. And that's how I dodge and burn an image. That's how I burn an image. So let's go in here now and make sure that the brush is selected over here. And you want to have this white one here, basically the opposite of what's here. You can toggle these here or use X. So that's white. And here is my brush. The brush size is a shortcut. I think it's bracketing keys, but I'm on a Norwegian keyboard, so I use O and A, which is 2 out of 3 letters that we have in addition to the English alphabet. And I can increase or decrease my brush size. So first things first, remember here, we got darken the image. And now I can paint in white. Make sure you highlight this, paint it in white on this. You can see it was white here, but it's not completely white because I got flow set to 24%, which basically means I'm painting it in slowly, as opposed to if that was 100%, it would be an instant, see-through white. So anyways, I'm darkening below the subject, behind, in places where I don't really want to draw the viewer's attention. Maybe some of these brighter parts here, we got a bright part there, a little bit down. And there we go. You can kind of see here what I've done. And that's like, I'm overdoing this now. This is way too dark, but that means since this is a layer, it's not actually affecting the bottom image. I can go in here now and change the opacity. So I'll just reset it all the way back to 0, so none of the effect is showing. And then I'll slowly just drag it in to get a little bit more feel for it. It's very important. You don't want to overdo these things, but you can always come back and undo if you feel like you've over edited an image, which is an easy thing to do, and I do it all the time. And that's the kind of thing you need to kind of look at it with fresh eyes, come back to it, and then maybe bring it back a little bit if you've gone too far. We can name these layers, and it's a good idea to keep track of it, because then you can come back to them, as I said, and you kind of know where you are. So I'll just name this Burn 1. Burning is darkening, dodging, and brightening. So darkening the image here behind. Let's make a dodge layer now. So same thing, levels, curves. I'll brighten. Let back in. Everything is shown, so this is see-through now. Command-I to make it dark. And now I can paint in the effect again, making sure that's on white. Now I'm going to go in on the eye on the squirrel. For that, Command+, zoom in a couple of times. Hold the space bar to kind of drag the image. And let's just paint in some white here to really make this kind of glint in the eye pop. And some of this slightly brighter parts down side here, maybe a bit more on the snout. Okay, so there we go, and Command-0 to bring it back. And we can toggle it on and off to see how it looks. See, that's quite a big change, especially that circle around the eye. That's too much. So again, opacity, to bring it straight down, and then just introduce it a little bit. I think around there, toggle that off and on. And see, it's very subtle, but it does help bring out that little bit more sparkle in the eye. And let's name it, just keep this organized. Dodge 1, not always very good at that, but it's a good thing to get into. Another curves adjustment, brighten it as well. Like this, Command-I to make it dark, increase my brush size with the bracketing keys. And I'm going to brighten up the squirrel a little bit more here. Tail here, which is already a bit white. I want a bit more white. Fur around here. You be careful when you do this at already very white spots, because you could just clip the highlights. But just brightening up the squirrel a little bit more where I want the viewer's attention to go. Can be a bit much, so let's do the opacity again, straight back down, and just introduce a little bit more. There we go. Off, on. Okay, and that will be dodge 2. Let's make one more dodge layer. Dodge 3. Same thing here. Everything is showing now with white. Command I to make it dark. And then I'm going to basically introduce more light to the image. It's going to be dragged, coming in, trying to make it look natural as opposed to just on the bird. Try and get it in, around the bird. Trying to make it look natural, and so it just kind of comes into the squirrel. Sorry if I said bird there, I'm just so used to editing bird images. And this is like over the top, but it really just shows what I'm kind of trying to do. Let's go to the opacity slider and bring it back down and just introduce it a little bit at a time. Something like that. Okay, so that's just kind of bringing in the light from where it comes, trying to make it look natural. I'm probably not, so here, maybe I don't want to go brighter on these already bright spots, so I can paint them away again using the black. I can change it here to black, or use the X. And just kind of out of it, make sure that they don't go too dark here. Okay, let's try again here, just where we're at here. Okay, something like that. And that's kind of the dodging and burning done here. Like I've darkened behind and underneath, and I'm just introducing a bit more brightness to the squirrel and a bit more brighter on the squirrel itself. And I also like to use this levels. You can change the brightness, so the darker parts of the image, the brighter parts of the image, and the midtones of the image. I quite like to use the midtones here to just increase a bit of contrast here. And you can kind of, if it goes a bit too dark, you can bring this down, brighten it up a bit. I'm sorry if I don't know exactly the terms of these things and exactly what they do, but I'm not an expert on Photoshop. I just know the things that I use. So there we go, and that's pretty much it. I can add a little bit of selective contrast as well. Same thing with the curves adjustment layer, which we use for dodging burning. Now I'll make this a little bit of a shaped curve, not too much. You see here it's affecting the whole image. I don't want that. So in here, Command I, and make sure this is set to white. And then I can just paint in a little bit more on the squirrel to get a bit more contrast. And there we go. That might be a bit too much, so just back it off a bit. Okay, there we go. I might just double check these, see if I can introduce a bit more brightness here. Back down my burn layer. How is that looking? So let's try that. I'll show you guys all the different layers that I've added now. So go down here to the background layer, hold the Option key. It's probably the Alt key on a PC, but don't hold me to that. Press the little viewing icon there, toggle them all off. So that's what it looked like from Lightroom. Then I burnt the bottom, a little bit in the back, so darken those areas. Then we went in and dodged the eye and a couple of things on the snout there, so a little bit more emphasis there. I could probably bring that in maybe a little bit more. Okay. Then we got another dodge layer, just brightening up the squirrel, the tail here. And final dodge layer, which basically just bringing in more light at the top half of the image here. And then we got the levels one here, and I darkened the midtones a little bit, brought more contrast to the image. And for the last one, I should write this as contrast. I added some contrast to the squirrel. A little bit more contrasty here. And that's basically it. Fairly simple, not too much, but I think it really makes that image pop. So let's save it and go back into Lightroom just to see the difference between the images. Now I'll make sure that we bring up, take the original Lightroom image, and I'll make a copy, and I'll reset this one just so you can see the effects all the way through. Original, press F to just show it in the whole screen. So that's the raw image of the red squirrel. And then we brought it into Lightroom and cropped it, changed a bit of the contrast, the white balance. I think it looks a lot better there than before, but still it's a little bit of that, like, you know, a little bit, kind of, it doesn't pop as much and your eyes doesn't go directly to the squirrel, I feel. So that's going to Photoshop and really, you know, burn the bottom part here, dodging and really making that squirrel pop. And now it's easier to see if you've gone too far or not. Very, very often what I do is, which is a good idea, is to step away from the computer screen and then come back to it with fresh eyes. Because when you do these tiny little changes, it's easier to do too much and it's hard to actually pick it up if you've gone too far or not. So looking at it with fresh eyes, I think already now maybe I've gone a little bit too far with the darkening at the bottom. And that's an easy fix. So let's just bring it back up in Photoshop. Since I have named all these, I can see right away, this is my burn one layer. Go in here, try the opacity down a little bit more on that, because I think I darkened a bit too much. And still, I think a lot less of it will still be effective. So there we go. And that's the great part about, you know, working in these layers, being able to go back, having them named as well to make it easy to work with. Oh. There we go, Lightroom and Photoshop. So I think that's basically my editing process right there. Quite happy with that image, and I think it just pops a lot more than this one here. You just, you know, because you get the bright parts down here, but you're really just leading the eye in. And this kind of dodging and burner technique is stuff that was even done in the darkroom by people like Ansel Adams. So it's not like over the top stuff that only people do now in, you know, Photoshop and things like that. So I really like it. It's a great tool, and yeah, I love using it. Let's just see here for the robin again. That's the robin that I had, and just bringing that brightness out of the bird there, and just emphasis on the bird, leading the eye to where you want it to go a lot more than the original image. So that's my whole editing process. That's what I do these days. And like I said, it's kind of an evolutionary thing. It changes, you know, depending on things that I learn and pick up. And I'm not an expert at Photoshop. You know, I know what I know. And every now and then when I want to learn a new thing, I'll just try and add that little thing. I hope you guys got something from that. I'd love to hear what you guys do for your editing. Is there a process in your post-editing that really, you know, makes a difference, something that you just couldn't live without? What makes the biggest change? What's the best thing that you've learned so far when it comes to post-processing? Because I learn a lot from you guys in your comments and the discussions that go back and forth, so please keep that coming. I really enjoy it. In the next video on post-processing, I'll show you guys how I remove noise in an image, and this is something I've just started and I think it's an absolutely amazing tool. So I'll show you that in the next video. So also, credit where credit is due. I've learned this sort of stuff from watching YouTube videos, and I learned a lot of this dodging and burning techniques from the guys from Wildlife Inspired. I think that's Scott Keys and Ray Hennessy. So I'll put a link to their YouTube channels, and you can kind of dive down the rabbit hole to see where I'm coming from, and they know a lot more about this technique than I do, and I hope I haven't butchered what they do really well in this video and how I do it, but that's some of the things that I've taken from watching them. And yeah, so if you're gonna go check them out, I'll put a link to it in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.